My name is Albert, and welcome to Unknown Facts. Alright, let's talk about samurai. When you think of a samurai, what do you picture? I bet it's a stoic warrior, right? Standing there looking super cool, with a gleaming katana sword, ready for a dramatic showdown. It's like something straight out of a movie. You see them in all the video games, the anime, the history books, and they always look so incredibly epic. It's this iconic image of honor, discipline, and let's be honest, just pure awesomeness. But what if I told you that almost everything you think you know is just the tip of the iceberg? What if the reality is even crazier, more surprising, and way more interesting than the legend? We're talking about things that sound totally made up, but I promise you, they are 100% real. Today, we are diving deep into the world of the samurai to uncover 10 secrets that will absolutely blow your mind. If you love history, secrets, and having your mind blown, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. Let's get into it. Okay, first up, let's tackle the biggest myth of them all, the katana. Everyone thinks the samurai and the katana go together like peanut butter and jelly. You picture the samurai, you picture the sword. It's their whole thing, right? The soul of the samurai, they called it. And yeah, the sword was incredibly important, no doubt about it. But to say that's all they used, that's not even close to the full story. The truth is, early samurai were actually masters of the bow and arrow. They were originally mounted archers. Picture this, thundering across a battlefield on horseback, firing arrows with pinpoint accuracy. It was called yabusame, and it was a huge deal. The sword was more of a sidearm, something you used when things got up close and personal. But wait, there's more. They were proficient with the yari, which is a spear, and these things could be super long, giving them a huge reach advantage. And get this one will really surprise you. Later on, they even used guns. When Portuguese traders introduced matchlock rifles to Japan in the 16th century, the samurai were all over them. So the next time you picture a samurai, maybe add a bow, a spear, and even a rifle to that image. They were the ultimate military multitaskers. So, we've all heard the word samurai a million times. It sounds powerful, it sounds legendary. But have you ever stopped to think about what the word actually means? The word samurai comes from the verb saburao, which means to serve or to attend upon. Isn't that interesting? Not to fight, not to conquer, but to serve. Their entire identity was built around the concept of service and loyalty to a lord, or daimyo. They were essentially the high-ranking retainers, the bodyguards, the trusted inner circle of Japan's nobility. Their whole existence was defined by their relationship with their master. A samurai's loyalty was supposed to be unshakable, unbreakable. This wasn't just a job, it was a lifelong commitment that was passed down through generations. They were defined not by who they could defeat, but by who they chose to serve. Alright, let's be honest. When we talk about samurai, we're usually picturing men. It's just the default image that pops into our heads. But what if I told you that was only half the story? What if there were powerful, skilled, and absolutely ferocious female warriors who fought right alongside them, defending their homes, their families, and their honor? They were called the Onna Bugeisha, which translates to woman warrior. These were women from the samurai class who were trained in martial arts from a young age, just like the men. They were skilled with weapons, especially the naginata, a long polearm with a curved blade on the end. The naginata was perfect for them. Its length and sweeping motions could be used to dismount cavalry and keep stronger opponents at a distance. When the men went off to war, somebody had to defend the castle, right? That was often the job of the women. There are incredible stories of heroines like Empress Jingu and Tomo Gozen, who was described in epic tales as a warrior worth 1,000 men, beautiful and unbelievably strong. DNA tests on ancient battlefields have even confirmed their presence, showing a surprising number of female remains among the fallen warriors. So, the next time you think about the samurai, remember the Onna Bugeisha, the fierce, forgotten women warriors who were every bit as brave and skilled as their male counterparts. You can't talk about samurai without talking about their code of conduct. The samurai lived by a strict, unwritten set of rules that governed every single aspect of their lives. This code was known as Bushido, which literally means the way of the warrior. It wasn't a book of laws you could just look up. It was a philosophy, a moral compass that every samurai was expected to internalize. So, Bushido was built on several key virtues. The big one was gi, or integrity and justice. A samurai had to have a strong moral character to know right from wrong. Then there was yu, which is heroic courage. And this wasn't just about being fearless in battle. It was about doing the right thing even when it was hard or dangerous. Another huge one was meiyo, or honor. A samurai's honor was their most valuable possession, way more valuable than their sword, their land, or even their life. To lose one's honor was the ultimate disgrace, a fate worse than death. And this is where the idea of seppuku, or ritual suicide, comes from. It was seen as a way to die with one's honor intact. But Bushido also included virtues like Jin for compassion, Makoto for honesty, and Rei for respect. So it wasn't just about being a tough fighter. It was about being a well-rounded, disciplined, and honorable human being. Bushido shaped the samurai into more than just soldiers. It shaped them into icons of discipline and moral strength that we still talk about today. Okay, let's talk about hair for a second. The iconic samurai hairstyle, that famous top knot, wasn't just a fashion statement. It actually had a very specific, very practical, and honestly, very clever purpose. The hairstyle is called the chanmage. You know the one. The top of the head is shaved, and the remaining hair on the sides and back is oiled, tied up, and folded into a little knot that sits right on top. And for centuries, people thought the shaved part was to make it easier for an enemy to cut their head off. But that makes absolutely no sense. Why would you help the other guy, right? The real reason is much smarter. The main job of a samurai was to fight in battles, and in battle, you wear a helmet. A big heavy metal helmet called a kabuto. Now imagine trying to wear one of those things for hours on end while you're running, fighting, and sweating. It would be incredibly hot, uncomfortable, and it would shift around on your head. The chanmage solved all of these problems. The shaved part on top helped with ventilation, keeping their head cooler. And the top knot itself acted as a perfect anchor point. The helmet's cords would be tied around the base of the top knot, securing the helmet firmly to the head. It created a stable, comfortable cushion that stopped the helmet from wobbling around. It was a brilliant, practical solution to a serious problem. So that famous haircut wasn't about style, it was about stability and survival. We have this image of the samurai as this elite noble class, right? Born into wealth and privilege, living in giant castles. And for many of them that was true. They were the 1%ers of feudal Japan. The samurai class was a hereditary aristocracy, and a lot of powerful families were basically the equivalent of dukes and earls. But that wasn't the whole picture. Not by a long shot. The samurai class was actually huge, and it had a lot of variety. Not every samurai was a high-ranking lord. Many were lower-ranking foot soldiers, or ashigaru, who were granted samurai status for their service. Some came from humble farming or merchant families and worked their way up through skill and bravery. It was possible, though tough, to climb the social ladder. So you had this whole spectrum from the incredibly wealthy daimyo to the guys who were basically just getting by. And then you have one of the most romanticized figures in Japanese history, the Ronin. The word Ronin means wave man, suggesting someone who is drifting, aimless. A Ronin was a masterless samurai. Their lord might have been killed in battle, or their clan might have been defeated. Whatever the cause, they were suddenly on their own. Life as a Ronin was incredibly tough. They were often viewed with suspicion and scorn. But this is also where we get the archetype of the wandering hero, the lone warrior who follows his own code of honor, protecting the innocent. They prove that honor wasn't just for the nobility. Let's talk about the drip, the samurai style. When you see a full suit of samurai armor, or yoroi, it's honestly just breathtaking. It's this intricate, colorful, and often terrifying work of art. It looks like something you'd see in a museum, and, well, it is. But here's the secret. Every single piece of that beautiful decorative armor had a very practical purpose. It was the perfect fusion of form and function, a masterpiece of military engineering that was also a personal statement. It wasn't one solid plate of metal like a European knight's armor. It was made of hundreds, sometimes thousands, of small individual scales or plates made of lacquered leather and iron. These were painstakingly laced together with silk or leather cords. This design made the armor incredibly flexible. A samurai could run, jump, ride a horse, and even shoot a bow with freedom of movement. It was designed for agility, with a freedom of movement that a knight in full plate could only dream of. Now, about those crazy designs. The bright colors, the elaborate lacing, the family crests, or mon, emblazoned on the chest. This wasn't just for show. In the chaos of a medieval battlefield, how do you tell friend from foe? The distinctive colors and crests of a clan's armor acted as a uniform. And then there are the helmets, the kabuto, which were often the most dramatic part. They had these wild crests, sometimes shaped like demon horns, dragons, or crescent moons. This was partly for identification, but it was also psychological warfare. Imagine seeing a warrior charging at you, wearing a helmet that makes him look like a terrifying demon from myth and legend. The armor wasn't just for protection, it was a symbol of power, a uniform, and a weapon of intimidation, all rolled into one. Okay, so we've established that samurai were fierce warriors, brilliant strategists, and masters of multiple weapons. They were tough, disciplined, and ready to face death at any moment. But here's a side to them that completely shatters that one-dimensional tough guy stereotype. They were also poets, artists, and scholars. It's this incredible paradox. The same hand that wielded a sword to take a life also held a brush to write a delicate poem about the beauty of a cherry blossom. This wasn't just a hobby for a few weirdos. The arts were considered an essential part of a warrior's training and education. It was believed that to be a truly great samurai, you needed to balance the martial arts, bu, with the cultural arts, bun. This was the concept of the ideal warrior, someone who was as refined as they were strong. They were expected to be proficient in things like calligraphy, or shodo, the art of beautiful writing. It required the same focus, discipline, and control as swordsmanship. Poetry, especially haiku, was also incredibly popular among the samurai. They would write these short, evocative poems about nature, the seasons, or their feelings on life and death. It was a way to cultivate sensitivity and a deep appreciation for the transient beauty of the world. Imagine a hardened warrior sitting under a tree after a battle, composing a poem about the moon. Many samurai were also masters of the tea ceremony, flower arranging, and inkwash painting. They were truly Renaissance men of their time, more focused, more disciplined, and more in tune with the world around them. When you think about the end of the samurai era, you probably picture the movie The Last Samurai, right? Tom Cruise, epic battles, a dramatic last stand against modernity in the late 1870s. And that event, the Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, is often seen as the final chapter for the samurai as a warrior class. It was the end of their official role in society. The government abolished their privileges, told them they couldn't wear their swords in public anymore, and created a modern, Western-style conscript army. The age of the warrior was over. But here's the secret. That wasn't the end of the samurai themselves. The people didn't just vanish. The samurai class was abolished, but the men and women who were born into that class were still very much alive. They had to adapt to a new Japan, and they didn't just fade away. They became the architects of the modern nation. They were the most educated and disciplined group in the country, and their skills were desperately needed. So what did they do? They became politicians, industrialists, bankers, teachers, and military officers in the new imperial army. The very first prime minister of Japan, Ito Hirobumi, was from a samurai family. The founder of Mitsubishi, Iwasaki Yataro, was also a samurai. So, while the warrior class officially ended in the 19th century, the last people who were born and raised as samurai lived well into the 20th century. They saw Japan go from a feudal society to a global power. The last true samurai wasn't a warrior who died on a battlefield in 1877, but likely an old man or woman who passed away peacefully sometime in the 1940s or 50s, a living bridge between two completely different worlds. Tattoos in Japan have a really complex history. Today they're often associated with the Yakuza, which gives them a scary reputation. But way back when, tattoos, or irizumi, had a very different and often hidden meaning. For samurai, especially lower-ranking ones or ronin who lived on the fringes of society, tattoos were not something you'd show off. They were often hidden under clothing, a private declaration of one's beliefs. A tattoo could be a way to carry a guardian deity or a protective symbol with you at all times, a secret language written on the skin. Dragons, for example, represented strength, wisdom, and benevolence. A koi fish swimming upstream symbolized perseverance and the courage to overcome great obstacles, a very samurai-like ideal. Traditional Japanese tattooing, or tebori, is done by hand with a set of needles on a wooden handle. It's slow, it's painful, and it takes incredible discipline to sit through. Sound familiar? The ability to endure the pain of a large tattoo was seen as a sign of a person's strength of character and commitment. It was a ritual that mirrored the discipline they applied to their martial arts. These tattoos were full of hidden symbolism. A tiger represented strength and courage against evil spirits. A phoenix symbolized rebirth and triumph. Even flowers had meaning. Cherry blossoms represented the beautiful but short nature of life. This was a way for a warrior to wear their personal story, their code, and their protectors on their body, hidden from the world, but always a part of them. It was a secret, silent form of armor. And there you have it! 10 secrets about the samurai that prove they were so much more than just guys with swords. From female warriors and gun-toting soldiers to poets and politicians, their story is way richer and more complex than we ever imagined. It's a history filled with honor, art, and incredible adaptability. They weren't just relics of a bygone era, they were complex human beings who shaped an entire nation and left behind a legacy that still fascinates us today. It just goes to show you that history is never as simple as it seems. There are always hidden layers and surprising truths waiting to be discovered, and that's what we love to do here at Unknown Facts. I mean, who knew their haircuts were for helmet stability? That's amazing! It's these little details that bring the past to life and make you realize how clever and resourceful people have always been. The samurai might be gone, but their spirit, their stories, and their secrets definitely live on. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and diving into the incredible world of the samurai. If you learned something new and want to see more videos like this, please hit that like button. It helps a ton. And make sure you're subscribed to Unknown Facts so you don't miss our next deep dive. We've got so many more secrets to uncover. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.